I'm starting this video off sitting on the top of my car because a lot of Alfa Romeo enthusiasts got very angry at me last time for doing this, and I find that funny. But I've owned this Alfa Romeo 159 for almost a year now, and it's been the first proper car that I've used and owned on the road since I got my license. And I want to go through some of the pros and cons of driving this type of car as a 22-year-old that lives in London and show you how it is to live with day in, day out. But I'm gonna go through some of the things I love and hate about this car. And let's just start off straight away with the exterior. Because my lord, I don't know what the Italians thought they were doing, but they did it right. They've managed to make a car which looks like a slightly overweight Black Panther with an annoyed expression on its face. And I'm all for it. And it being a Giorgiario design, I pronounced that very wrong probably. You know he's serious when it comes to a lot of car designs. With the likes of the DeLorean, Mark 1 Golf, he's no G in the game when it comes to car design, and he did not go wrong here. The only thing that has gone wrong here is these dents, but we don't talk about that. Video up there on the top right. But aesthetically, this car is great. It's the TI variant, so it's got more premium spec on it with the lovely TI wheels, as you can see, and I believe Brembo brakes as well. And the rear end, you got the twin tailpipes. Once again, I spoke about all of this before, but they're very nice. And there is also a sport wagon version of this car, which obviously is a lot more practical, but it's also pretty good looking. But I opted for the sedan variant because I kind of just like the shape in general. But yeah, once again, full leather interior, you got stitching. There's nice attention to detail on the seats. Look at the little holes and the perforations, and even a headrest. Like, this is unnecessary, but the Italians put that little bit extra into it. Along with the pretty door cards. I know it's a door card, it's not that deep, but it's nice. They put effort into this design, and I appreciate that. As we get into the car, obviously I've added my little touches here and there with the totally legit carbon fiber steering wheel. But even the center dash just has an attention to detail, which is just unnecessary, but it's just nice. With that kind of brushed aluminium. You got your standard kind of aircon, dual climate control, and rear climate control, which is pretty good. There's also a little cubby hole here for emergency mackerel, if you ever need that, so that's pretty useful. Gear stick is pretty good looking. All the leather on it with the red stitching looks really good. It's definitely an above average interior for a car this price bracket. And these front seats do look like they came out of a car that has at least 500 horsepower, so I don't know why they're in here, but they're cool. And for a 2007 car, fully electric, fully heated, again, that does come with the TI variant. It's a cool little luxury to have. Some manufacturers just like making cars that make you feel like you're going fast when you're not. But overall, I wouldn't change it. I like it. We have space for one bottle and two extra bottles that are not really bottle holders. And the radio pretty bog standard for the time. I did have my upgraded one in there, but as I'm selling this car, I have taken that out. But the original one is actually very good sounding in comparison to my Pioneer one. I don't know if I didn't have my Pioneer one tuned properly, but this just works really well. But I think we should take the 159 for a little spin and talk a little bit more about why this might be the car for you. Finna whip this home. There's better shit in the background, but there's a lot of creaking sounds in this car right now. I'd admit, I've completely shot my suspension going over a speed bump quite fast, but it's okay, because it still drives. It is hard for me to draw comparisons to other cars, especially this car's competitors, that being like the A4, the BMW E46, and the C-Class. And I haven't driven any of those cars, so this is a very biased review, basically. But for what I can tell you is that this car handles like a guided missile. Like if I turn, it turns hard. This thing will zigzag so accurately through roads. I don't know if that's down to how it's been engineered or what, but it handles very nicely. I love the headlights, especially the halo lights that I put on there. Yes, a lot of purists don't like them, but I don't care. My car, my rules. The engine bay is unnecessarily nice looking, but honestly, one of the best parts about this car is that it does have this luxurious feel to it. When I sit in my Mercedes CLK that I'm building, go check the video up there somewhere, I don't get that same feeling of like, yeah, it's all leather, cool, but this does leather stylistically, like unnecessarily stylistically. You look at the door cards here and it's just got little waves in it. Oh, granddad is making that turn very slowly. Off for his Friday din-dins. It doesn't seem to look like there's any compromises that have been made anywhere at all. And I think my friend Sev mentioned this. The center dash is very reminiscent of the Toyota Supra. It has this kind of big fascia that faces towards you as a driver. Again, unnecessary, but it creates the extra luxurious feeling. I do genuinely think they had some real tasteful designers in here. And also this car comes in 3 different trim levels, I believe. And this one's the highest one, the TI. And I know Alfa Romeo back in the day, not so much now, but had the unreliable kind of brand image. I do think this car was the turning point. And this is not just me speaking from experience. They got a German engineer to work all the electrics on this car, as far as I'm aware. And as we know, German electrics are okay. Italian electrics, however, I'm not too sure. With the 156, which I believe was totally Italian engineered, yeah, I had problems with electrics. It's a well-known thing. But with this car, I haven't had one issue with anything in that regard. And honestly, if you didn't know, this is also kind of the predecessor to the Giulia, which is a great car. A lot of shared design features there. And if you know about the Giulia GTAM, sexiest Alfa Romeo I've ever seen in my life. But all of that aside, let's talk money, because this car isn't the cheapest, but it isn't the most expensive. I'm a relatively young driver. I'm 22. I got my license last year, and there have been some costs that I've had to pay to have this car. Main one being insurance. Now, I wanted quite a big car as my first proper car, and most sedans were quite expensive insurance for me, and it took quite a lot of research to finally find a car, which was this car, that came out at a relatively okay price. And also because I'm in central London, everything's just more expensive by default. So I paid £2,000 per year, which is okay, I guess. I know there's probably people out there my age that pay £300 a year for the C63 or something. It's just different depending on where you are, and there's just a lot of mitigating factors, but cheaper than most. Maintenance, I do all the maintenance myself, so it's really parts costs, and parts don't cost a lot for this car, but they are a bit of a ball ache to find. Not the greatest on petrol. I average about 20 mpg, which isn't amazing. It's actually not amazing to the point where I can't lie, I do just leave this car sometimes and go take my motorbike. Even it being a 4-cylinder, it drinks. And also tax isn't the greatest because it is an older car and it just does let out more CO2. That's just kind of something you have to deal with if you want an old car. But the biggest aspect of all of this is the overall price of a 159. Now there's lots of different variants. This is a 2.2, so it's kind of like middle of the range in terms of engine size. But you got all the diesels, you got a 1.8, the 1.9 petrol, and then you got the V6, which is what a lot of people go for because of the power. And then the 1750 TBI, which is the most sought after, being the best engine and best overall latest released car. That one's the most expensive. The V6s are obviously quite expensive as well, depending on mileage, but you can pick up a very cheap diesel or petrol 2.2, 1.9, 1.8 for maybe just over £1,000, £2,000 for a decent one. Obviously, I can't really buy a diesel because of ULEZ in London. I literally get charged £20 per day basically to drive it around. But if you can find a nice petrol one, £1,500, £2,000, it's a very cheap car. But again, it's an Alfa Romeo, so do be prepared to fork out money if things do start going wrong. But again, back to reliability, everything that has gone wrong with this car is all kind of my fault. Suspension struts, went over a speed bump way too fast, ruined them. Bushings, they were already kind of bad before I got the car, and I still haven't replaced them because I'm lazy. And a cracked window because of straight degeneracy. But doing a simple oil filter and oil change, this car is going to run smooth for a long time. However, there are some things that do me off about this car. First one being, the gearbox is a pile of horse shit. Like, shifting from third to fourth right now, it's like stiffer than my great-grand's fucking knees. There's nothing satisfying about it. You can't do DMO VTEC shifting in this. It just feels like shit. And sometimes it doesn't even want to go into gear properly. It's like clicking. And I have seen this a lot online. People do complain about this. The M32 gearbox, Vauxhall Fiat gearbox. I don't know, bro. Like, when I hear Vauxhall, I don't really hear good news. I don't know if it's down to that or what, but gearbox is dog awful. I have serviced it and no improvement whatsoever. Second thing is barely any cup holders. Now, I know there's some sort of like cup holder things in here. That does not cut it. They're the most useless things. They don't even fit like the universal size for a normal cup of any sort. And this cup holder over here is just arse because my arm is being molested every time I shift the gear. So that's not great. I like cup holders. Cup holders are just the thing you should have in life that should just work and be there. And thirdly, there's not a lot of power. Like, sure, 185 horsepower isn't awful, but it doesn't feel like 185, I don't know. And this is only a 2.2, so you're not gonna get anything crazy, I get it, but I'd expect it to be that little bit more nippy. Fourthly, the doors make an awful sound when you close them for whatever reason. Like, it sounds like a homemade door. What is that? Like, even commenting on a door, like I'm not even trying to be a bougie don. My doors must close with 300 grams of resistance to ensure a proper shut. Nah, bro. I just want the door to close and sound okay. But this car does not sound good when you close the doors. Imagine a man pulls up to the motive and you close the door. It's actually embarrassing. Minus 10,000 aura when you pull up and you get out looking cool when you close the door. It sounds hollower than Keir Starmer's head. Fifthly, I do wish this car was a little bit longer from the rear. There's something about the rear which just looks a bit short, and that if it was a bit longer, it'd be a bit more aesthetically pleasing. And also that way you get a bigger boot capacity. I think it would just make more sense. But other than those little bits and bobs, I've really enjoyed my time with this car. It's basically done literally everything I've needed it to do, and it's also done a couple things I didn't need it to do. But for the most part, I've felt mad privileged being able to sit in a car that looks this good as a new driver on quite an affordable basis. I definitely look to be getting one of these in the future. And bear in mind, when this car was made, I was 6 years old at the time. So to know that this car has been kicking it about for that long warms my heart. It's cool to think about. This thing has had a whole life, and this is probably the most abusive 1 year it's ever been through. But I've enjoyed it, brother. I don't think that's all that matters. You've got to enjoy your cars, man. Respect it, but enjoy it. Yeah, man. Gonna miss this little thing. So I guess the conclusion is, if you are a young driver and you want one of these, do go for it. It's doable. If you're an older driver, this could be a very appealing car as well. But I will warn you, this car does attract an older demographic. You will probably get war veterans and Turkish uncles coming to you asking you questions about this car. So I guess be ready for that. But yeah, this is probably the last time you're gonna see this 159 because it is up for sale. But she has been a good car to me. But a new car is coming in place of this one. Stay tuned for that. But for now, I've been Rayski. Bless up.